Hey everyone, Elizabeth here. The Last Laugh delivers stories that leave you speechless if you're here for it. Hit subscribe and let's go.
The email arrived on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing quarterly reports in my home office. Subject: Dad's 65th birthday celebration, Oakmont Country Club. I opened it already knowing what I'd find. Richard, it began. My father never called me Rick. We're hosting my birthday dinner at Oakmont Country Club this Saturday. Black tie required. Given the caliber of guests attending, including several judges, the district attorney, and prominent business leaders, perhaps it's best you skip this one. Your current circumstances don't reflect well on the family image we're trying to maintain. My sister Jessica had added her own message below. Dad's right, Rick. His golf partner is literally the DA. Mom's bridge group will be there. Your retail job and that studio apartment. It's embarrassing. Just sit this one out. We'll send you leftovers. My brother Marcus chimed in last. Dude, the membership committee will be there. Don't make Dad look bad in front of these people. They're not like your coworkers. I sat back in my chair, looking around my supposedly embarrassing studio apartment. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. The minimalist design I'd carefully chosen. The space that cost $4,800 monthly, not that my family knew. I typed one word, understood. Then I opened my calendar and marked Saturday evening. I had a board meeting that afternoon anyway, just 30 minutes from Oakmont. The timing would work perfectly. My phone buzzed. Jessica again, thanks for being mature about this. It's really for the best. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the file my attorney had prepared 6 months ago. The one I'd been saving for the right moment. Saturday was going to be very interesting. I'd been the family disappointment for as long as I could remember. My father, Richard Thornton Sr., had built a successful dental practice. 3 locations, 20 employees, the works. He'd expected all 3 of his children to follow prestigious paths. Jessica became a corporate attorney. Marcus went into pharmaceutical sales, pulling 6 figures by 30. And then there was me. I dropped out of business school my junior year. The family still brought it up at every gathering. Rick couldn't even finish college, Dad would say, shaking his head. Had to go work retail instead. What they didn't know was that I'd dropped out because I'd been accepted into an accelerated executive training program at Meridian Hospitality Group, one of the largest luxury hotel and resort management companies in the country. Only 15 candidates were selected nationally each year. I'd been one of them, but I never told my family. I'd learned early that anything I achieved would be dismissed or diminished, so I stopped sharing. When they asked about my job, I said I worked in retail. Technically true, hotels sell rooms, food, experiences. I just didn't mention that I was being groomed for executive leadership. Still selling t-shirts? Marcus would joke at Christmas dinners. Hey, nothing wrong with honest work, little bro. I'd smile and change the subject. By 25, I'd been promoted to assistant manager at one of Meridian's flagship properties in Boston. By 28, I was managing a $180 million resort in Colorado. By 32, I'd been recruited to lead the turnaround of a failing historic hotel chain. My family thought I was a store clerk living paycheck to paycheck. The truth? I'd been quietly building something else entirely. 3 years ago, I'd partnered with 2 former Meridian executives to form Apex Hospitality Ventures. We specialized in acquiring underperforming country clubs and private venues, restructuring them and turning them profitable. Our first acquisition was a bankrupt golf club in Connecticut. We bought it for $8.2 million, renovated it and sold it 18 months later for $21 million. Our second was a historic yacht club in Maine. Purchased for $12 million, currently valued at $34 million. Our third acquisition closed 14 months ago. Oakmont Country Club. My father's beloved Oakmont, where he'd been a member for 23 years. The place he'd spent countless hours networking, golfing, hosting business dinners. The club he'd referenced in every conversation about success and status. The board had been desperate to sell. Years of mismanagement had left them $6.8 million in debt, facing foreclosure. They'd accepted our offer of $15.2 million, with the condition that we maintain the club's historic character and existing memberships. I'd personally guaranteed both conditions in the acquisition agreement. I'd also specifically requested that my ownership remain confidential. The board agreed. They wanted a smooth transition, not drama. As far as the members knew, they'd been purchased by Apex Hospitality Ventures. No names attached. My father had complained about the sale for months. New ownership, he'd grumbled at Easter dinner. Some corporate vultures bought the place, probably going to ruin it with their efficiency improvements. I'd nodded sympathetically. That's tough, Dad. They're making us reapply for membership, he'd continued. After 23 years. Like I'm some nobody off the street. What he didn't know was that the reapplication process was standard for acquisitions like this. We needed updated financial information, background checks, references. Some members, those behind on dues or involved in previous disputes, hadn't made the cut. Dad had passed, of course. His finances were solid, his record clean. But the process had made him anxious. He'd become obsessed with proving his status, his connections, his worthiness to remain at his club. Hence this birthday dinner. A statement event. A display of influence. Just not the kind he'd planned. I'd attended exactly 3 family events in the past 5 years. Each time the script was the same. Rick's still in retail, Mom would explain to relatives, her voice apologetic. We keep hoping he'll go back to school, finish his degree. At least he's employed, Dad would add, the ultimate backhanded compliment. Jessica would talk about her latest case, defending a Fortune 500 company in some complex litigation. Marcus would discuss his sales numbers, his bonus structure, his company car. And I would sit quietly eating my meal, letting them believe whatever they wanted. Because I'd learned something important over the years. The less they knew, the less they could interfere with. The less they could criticize, manipulate, or take credit for. My success was mine alone. Built without their money, without their connections, without their approval. And now their entire social structure, the country club that defined their identity, was mine too. I hadn't planned it this way. When we'd identified Oakmont as an acquisition target, I'd actually hesitated. Considered passing on the deal specifically because of the family connection. But my business partners had been right. Personal feelings couldn't override a sound business decision. Oakmont was perfectly positioned for our growth strategy. The hesitation lasted about 10 minutes. Now, reading their dismissive invitation, I didn't regret the decision at all. The Monday after receiving the invitation, I had a meeting with Catherine Chin, our Chief Financial Officer, and David Morrison, our Director of Operations. We gathered in my actual office. Not the studio apartment my family imagined, but the corner suite on the 42nd floor of the Millennium Tower downtown. Oakmont's quarterly numbers? I asked, pulling up the financial dashboard on the screen. Catherine smiled. Revenue up 18% year-over-year. Membership retention at 94%. We've cleared $2.1 million of the inherited debt. The restaurant renovations? I turned to David. Completed last month, under budget. Member satisfaction scores jumped 23 points. We're now booking private events 4 months out. I nodded, reviewing the member roster on my tablet. My father's name appeared on page 3. Richard Thornton Sr., member since 2002, account current, spending category, high. Any issues with the Thornton account? I asked casually. Catherine checked her notes. None. Actually, he's increased his spending since we took over. Hosted 6 private dinners in the past quarter, all paid promptly. Excellent member profile. Good, I said. Let's keep it that way. What my family didn't understand was that I genuinely wanted Oakmont to succeed. I wasn't some corporate raider looking to strip assets. I loved the hospitality industry. The challenge of creating exceptional experiences, the satisfaction of turning struggling properties into thriving venues. Oakmont had been a disaster when we'd acquired it. The previous ownership had deferred maintenance for years, let service standards slip, and alienated longtime members with tone-deaf policies. We'd spent the first 6 months just stabilizing operations. New chef, retrained staff, updated technology systems. We'd renovated the locker rooms, resurfaced the tennis courts, and completely overhauled the golf course irrigation system. The members had noticed. Complaints had dropped by 70%. Membership applications had increased. The club my father loved was actually better now than it had been in decades. But he'd never know that I was responsible. At least not until Saturday. Your father's birthday dinner, Catherine said, glancing at her schedule. Saturday evening, main dining room. Party of 35. He's requested the private wine cellar room. Confirmed, David added. Premium menu, full bar service. He's paying top dollar for this event. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Pride that the club was good enough for my father's milestone celebration. Frustration that he was using this celebration to specifically exclude me. I'll be attending, I said. Catherine looked up surprised. The dinner. Not as a guest. I have a board meeting that afternoon at the Riverside property. Oakmont's 30 minutes away. I'll stop by around 7:30. Should we alert the staff? David asked carefully. No, I said. Let's keep it organic. I'll just be making a routine ownership visit. If I happen to encounter my family. I shrugged. So be it. David and Catherine exchanged glances. They'd both met my family once at a charity event last year where my parents had walked past me without recognition, too busy networking with important people. Your call, Catherine said. But I'm going to make sure our best staff are working that night. This should be handled smoothly. Agreed, I said. And David? Make sure Director Wilson is on site. She handles difficult situations well. Perfect, he said, making a note. She'll be there. The rest of the week passed normally. I reviewed acquisition proposals, attended meetings, hosted a dinner with potential investors. My phone buzzed occasionally with family group chat messages. Jessica asking if anyone had heard from me, Marcus joking that I'd probably forgotten about Dad's party anyway, Mom expressing relief that I wasn't coming to complicate things. I didn't respond to any of them. On Saturday afternoon, I attended our board meeting at the Riverside property. We discussed expansion plans, reviewed financial projections, and approved the acquisition of a new property in Vermont. The meeting ended at 6:45. I changed into my Tom Ford suit, the navy one that had cost more than my family thought I earned in 3 months. Then I drove to Oakmont Country Club. I arrived at 7:20, parking in the owner's reserved spot near the main entrance. The valet Miguel recognized me immediately. Mr. Thornton. We didn't know you were coming tonight. Just a quick visit, Miguel. My father's having his birthday dinner here. I thought I'd check on things. His eyes widened slightly. He knew exactly who my father was, but he remained professional. Of course, sir. The main dining room is fully booked tonight. Your father's party is in the wine cellar room. Perfect, I said, handing him my keys. I'll just walk through, make sure everything's running smoothly. I entered through the main doors, nodding to staff members who recognized me. The Saturday evening crowd was strong. The main dining room was packed, the bar area humming with conversation. I made my way toward the wine cellar room, stopping occasionally to observe service, check details. Everything looked excellent. David's team had done outstanding work. As I approached the private dining area, I could hear laughter and conversation. Through the glass doors I could see my family's party in full swing. My father sat at the head of the table, surrounded by well-dressed guests. I recognized several of them. The district attorney, 2 judges, several business owners I'd seen in local news coverage. My mother sat to his right, elegant in a black cocktail dress. Jessica and Marcus were holding court on either side, clearly working the room. I stood there for a moment watching them. They looked happy, successful, surrounded by exactly the kind of people they valued. And I felt nothing. No anger, no bitterness. Just a calm recognition that these were people who'd chosen status over family, appearances over authenticity. I turned to continue my walkthrough of the property when my father's voice suddenly rose above the dinner conversation. And thank God Rick had the sense to stay home. Can you imagine if he'd shown up here? My son, the retail clerk, at a table with the district attorney. Laughter erupted. Someone said something I couldn't quite hear. Jessica's voice carried next. He probably couldn't afford the suggested dress code anyway. I'm pretty sure he owns one suit and it's from Men's Warehouse. More laughter. Marcus chimed in. Hey, at least he knows his place. Some people can't handle being around success. My mother's voice, softer but still audible. We did try with him. Some children just don't have the drive. I watched my father stand raising his wine glass. A toast. To family, to success, and to knowing where we belong. Places like this, he gestured around the elegant room, are for people who've earned them. Hear, hear, multiple voices responded. I felt a hand on my shoulder. Mr. Thornton? I turned to find Patricia Wilson, our Director of Member Services. She was in her early 50s, impeccably professional, and had been with Oakmont for 8 years, longer than our ownership. "Is that your family, sir?" she asked quietly, glancing toward the wine cellar room. "It is," I said. "Would you like me to handle this?" I looked back at the celebration. At my father still holding his wine glass, basking in the attention. At my siblings working the room like the social climbers they were. At my mother nodding approvingly at every word. "Yes," I said. "Let's handle this." Patricia and I stepped into her office just off the main hallway. "How would you like to approach this?" she asked, her tone carefully neutral. I thought for a moment. I could walk in there right now, announce my ownership, and watch their faces change. The nuclear option. But that felt too easy. Too crude. "What's my father's total spending tonight?" I asked. Patricia pulled up her tablet. The wine cellar room rental, $2,800. The premium menu for 35 guests, $4,725. Wine and bar service, $3,200 so far, likely to reach $4,000 by end of evening. Total estimated, $11,525. I nodded. A significant expense even for my father. He was making a statement with this event. And his annual membership dues? $28,000 annually, paid quarterly. Current through December. He also carries a $15,000 dining minimum, which he exceeds every year by approximately 40%. So my father was a valued member. Good. That meant this wasn't about revenge or petty punishment. This was about truth. "Here's what we're going to do," I said. "Let the dinner continue. Don't interrupt their celebration. Around 8:15, after they've finished the main course, I'd like you to enter the room. Introduce yourself as the Director of Member Services. Tell them you wanted to personally ensure the birthday celebration is exceeding expectations." Patricia nodded, understanding where this was going. "Then," I continued, "mention that our majority owner happened to be on property this evening and wanted to personally extend birthday wishes to Mr. Thornton. Ask if they'd be comfortable with a brief greeting. And when they agree," Patricia asked, "bring me in. Introduce me by full name and title. Then step back and let nature take its course." Patricia's professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing a small smile. "Understood, sir. 8:15. Perfect timing," I said. "Right before dessert service. They'll be relaxed, satisfied, surrounded by their guests. Maximum impact." "I'll coordinate with the service team," Patricia said. "Would you like to wait in your office?" "No," I said. "I'll be in the main dining room having dinner. Table 12 has a good view of the wine cellar room entrance. If I'm going to do this, I want to see their faces when you make the announcement." Patricia checked her tablet. "Table 12 is currently occupied, but I can have them moved." "That won't be necessary," I said. "Just have them add another chair. I'll be joining them." "Sir. They're sitting with Governor Harrison and his wife. We met at a hospitality conference last year. I'm sure they won't mind the company." Patricia's smile widened. "Of course not, sir. I'll arrange it immediately." At 7:50, I was seated at table 12, enjoying a perfectly cooked filet and discussing infrastructure policy with Governor Harrison. "The challenge with public-private partnerships," the governor was saying, "is finding private entities that actually understand long-term community benefit." "Exactly," I agreed. "Too many companies focus purely on quarterly returns. Real hospitality investment requires a 10 to 15-year vision." His wife, Ellen, nodded. "That's what we loved about your approach to Oakmont. You could have stripped it for parts, sold off parcels. Instead, you've enhanced it." Through the glass doors, I could see my family's celebration in full swing. The main course was being served. My father had ordered the prime rib, his favorite. Everyone looked happy, animated, exactly as they should at a milestone birthday celebration. I checked my watch. 8:12. Patricia appeared in my peripheral vision, smoothing her black dress suit as she approached the wine cellar room. She knocked gently on the glass door, then entered. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could see everything. Patricia approached my father, smiled warmly, introduced herself. My father stood immediately, always the gracious host when dealing with club staff. They shook hands. She was speaking, gesturing around the room. My father was nodding, clearly pleased. Then Patricia said something that made everyone at the table look up with interest. My father's expression shifted from pleased to intrigued. He glanced at his guests, the district attorney, the judges, then back to Patricia. He nodded enthusiastically. Patricia gestured toward the door as if asking permission to bring someone in. My father spread his hands magnanimously, the perfect host. Of course. Absolutely. Patricia exited the wine cellar room and walked directly toward my table. Governor Harrison, so sorry to interrupt, she said smoothly. Mr. Thornton, they're ready for you. I stood folding my napkin. Excuse me, Governor. This shouldn't take long. Take your time, he said, a knowing look in his eyes. Alan was trying very hard not to smile. I followed Patricia across the main dining room. Several members recognized me, nodding respectfully. I acknowledged them with a slight smile. At the wine cellar room entrance, Patricia paused. Ready, sir? She asked quietly. Absolutely, I said. She opened the door. The room fell silent as we entered. 35 faces turned toward us, curious, expectant, slightly confused. My father stood at the head of the table, his expression welcoming but puzzled. He was clearly trying to place me. I looked vaguely familiar, but the context was all wrong. Patricia's voice carried perfectly in the quiet room. Mr. Thornton, family and guests, I wanted to personally thank you for celebrating this milestone at Oakmont Country Club. Your loyalty to this institution means everything to us. Polite murmurs of appreciation. As I mentioned, Patricia continued, our majority owner happened to be on property this evening and wanted to personally extend his birthday wishes. It's not often he's able to meet members in such an intimate setting. She turned to me, her professional smile firmly in place. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce Richard Thornton Jr., majority owner of Apex Hospitality Ventures and Oakmont Country Club. The silence that followed was profound. I watched my father's face cycle through confusion, recognition, disbelief, and finally shock. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. My mother's wine glass tilted, spilling Chardonnay across the white tablecloth. She didn't notice. Jessica's fork clattered to her plate, the sound impossibly loud in the silent room. Marcus had gone completely pale, his hand frozen halfway to his mouth. Happy birthday, Dad, I said calmly, walking toward the head of the table. I hope you're enjoying your evening. My father finally found his voice. You can't, this is Oakmont Country Club? I finished. Yes. Apex Hospitality Ventures acquired it 14 months ago. I'm the majority shareholder. Patricia here has been invaluable in managing the transition. The district attorney was staring at me with open fascination. One of the judges was clearly trying not to laugh. But you work in retail, my mother whispered as if this explained everything. Hospitality retail, yes, I said. Hotels, resorts, country clubs. We buy underperforming properties, restructure them and make them profitable. Oakmont is our third acquisition. It's performing beautifully, by the way. I moved closer to my father, keeping my voice conversational, pleasant. Your membership dues, $28,000 annually. Help fund the renovations you've been enjoying. The new locker rooms? Apex funding. The restaurant updates? Apex investment. The golf course improvements you complimented last month? We allocated $380,000 for that project. My father sank slowly into his chair. The studio apartment you find so embarrassing? I continued. It's in Millennium Tower. $4,800 monthly. The retail job? I'm CEO of a company that manages $167 million in hospitality assets. Jessica found her voice. All this time you just let us think. I let you assume, I corrected. I never lied. You never asked for details. You just decided what my life looked like and never questioned it. Marcus was staring at the table as if the wood grain held answers. I turned to address the wider table, the guests who'd come to celebrate my father. Please don't let this interrupt your celebration. This is genuinely a wonderful milestone and Oakmont is honored to host it. Patricia, please ensure their dessert service is exemplary. Top shelf all the way. Of course, Mr. Thornton, Patricia said. I looked back at my father one last time. He was still sitting, still processing, his carefully constructed evening collapsing around him. Oh, and Dad, I said. The invitation said my background doesn't reflect well on you. For what it's worth, I think you were right. It doesn't reflect on you at all. What I've built is mine alone. No family money, no family connections, no family support. Just me making decisions you'd have criticized at every turn. I turned to leave, then paused. Enjoy your dinner. Patricia will ensure you're well taken care of. After all, at Apex, we believe everyone deserves excellent service, regardless of how they treat their family. I walked toward the door. Patricia held it open, her expression perfectly neutral. Behind me, I heard my father make a strangled sound. Then someone started laughing. One of the judges, I think. Richard, the district attorney's voice called out. That was the most magnificent thing I've ever seen. I didn't turn around. I walked back to table 12, where Governor Harrison was waiting with a fresh glass of wine. Everything resolved? He asked, his eyes twinkling. Completely, I said, sitting down. Good, he said. Now where were we? Yes, infrastructure investment. The wine cellar room remained eerily quiet for exactly 90 seconds after I left. Then, according to Patricia's report later, all hell broke loose. My father started yelling, demanding to see documentation, insisting there must be some mistake. Patricia calmly provided our acquisition agreement, printed and notarized. The Oakmont Country Club logo was clearly visible at the top, with Apex Hospitality Ventures listed as the new ownership entity, and my signature at the bottom. Jessica, ever the attorney, grabbed the document and began reading it line by line, her face growing increasingly pale. Marcus pulled out his phone, clearly Googling. Patricia told me later that he'd found our company website, our acquisition history, my professional bio complete with credentials and photo. My mother sat frozen, still not having noticed the wine staining her dress. The district attorney, apparently finding the situation hilarious, raised his own glass. Well, this certainly makes the evening memorable. Happy birthday, Richard. Several other guests joined the toast, some looking amused, others uncomfortable with the sudden family drama. Jessica found her lawyer voice. Richard, you can't just. You've been lying to us for years. Patricia, still in the room, corrected her gently. Actually, Miss Thornton, Mr. Thornton never misrepresented himself. I have transcripts from several family events where he accurately described working in hospitality retail. Those statements were factually correct. My father's voice rose. Get out. All of you, we need privacy. Patricia stepped forward. Sir, I apologize, but the wine cellar room is reserved until 10:30. Your guests are welcome to stay, or we can relocate your party to a smaller space if you'd prefer a private family conversation. The implication was clear. The club didn't belong to my father anymore. He didn't make those decisions. One of the judges, Judge Morrison, who'd apparently been enjoying the show, stood up. I think that's our cue. Richard, thank you for a truly unforgettable evening. Patricia, excellent service as always. Several other guests followed his lead, making polite excuses, thanking my father for the invitation and leaving quickly. Within 10 minutes, the party of 35 had dwindled to 7. My parents, my siblings and their partners, and 2 family friends too loyal or too curious to leave. Patricia remained near the door, professional and immovable. My father tried one last time. I want to speak to whoever's actually in charge here. That would be Mr. Thornton, Patricia said calmly. Would you like me to request that he return? The look on my father's face suggested that was the last thing he wanted. The dessert service will begin in 10 minutes, Patricia continued. Our pastry chef has prepared individual chocolate soufflés. We can proceed as planned, or I can arrange for them to be boxed to go. It's entirely your choice. My father didn't answer. In the main dining room, Governor Harrison was telling me about his daughter's recent wedding at one of our Connecticut properties. My phone began buzzing with texts. I silenced it without looking. The texts continued all evening. I didn't read them until I got home around 11. Dad, we need to talk. Immediately. Mom, Richard, please call us. This is serious. Jessica, you owe us an explanation. This is completely unacceptable. Marcus, dude, what the actual hell? Call me. Jessica, again, I'm looking into the legality of this. There has to be some kind of disclosure requirement. Dad, you deliberately humiliated me in front of the most important people in my professional network. Marcus, everyone's asking questions. My clients saw the posts on social media. This affects me too. Mom, how could you do this to your father on his birthday? I poured myself a scotch, Macallan 25, worth more than they thought I made in a week, and sat by my Harborview windows. Then I typed one message and sent it to the family group chat. I didn't humiliate you. You humiliated yourselves by assuming failure was the only explanation for a life that looked different from yours. I've been successful for over a decade. You just never bothered to ask. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I muted the chat and opened my laptop. Patricia had sent her post-event report. The remaining guest had left by 9:15. My family had departed shortly after, desserts untouched. They'd paid their bill without incident. Of course they had. The district attorney was watching. The final note made me smile. Several members approached me after your family's departure to express support for new ownership and specifically compliment your professionalism. Member satisfaction remains at all-time high. 3 new membership applications submitted tonight after witnessing the exchange. Apparently, word spreads quickly about ownership that handles difficult situations with grace. On Monday morning, Catherine forwarded me another email. A new acquisition opportunity in Rhode Island, a historic yacht club similar to our main property. I reviewed the numbers, ran the projections, and scheduled a site visit. Because this was what I did. This was who I was. Not a disappointment. Not a failure. Not someone who needed their approval or their understanding. Just someone who'd built something real, something substantial, something entirely my own. And if they couldn't see that, that was their failure, not mine. My phone buzzed one more time. Governor Harrison, excellent dinner conversation. Ellen and I would love to have you at the residence next month. Purely social. You've earned a break from business talk. I smiled and replied, I'd be honored. Then I closed my laptop and looked out at the harbor lights. The view was excellent from here.